Hello, everybody. We are here for the third episode of Church Chats, and it is Friday. We filmed Church Chats last Sunday, and it did not turn out well. My camera corrupted again, but I think I have figured out the problem. If it doesn't work this time, you won't be seeing this, so if you're seeing this, it worked.
Yay!
And let me just talk about the way I look just real quick, because I had kind of a medical issue today where I almost passed out, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but I had zero energy to put on my face, so you get to see the true natural. Yeah. So the other thing is, we're probably not going to remember the same things that we said or all of the message because it's been a while, but I think I do remember the main points.
Yes.
Is that Dijon? Anyway, I thought I saw someone I knew walking on the street. But anyway, it was called The Power of a Shadow, and it was Pierre Duplessis, who is the pastor out of Rochester, New York, which was a guest preacher, and his church is called The Father's House. And I think I remembered all that correctly.
Yes.
But he started off talking about the power of a shadow, and he talks about the different shadows that you're under throughout your life. And he started off talking about you being under the shadow of your parents or whomever you're raised by, and how much of an impact that has on your life. And I remember Becky and I talked a lot about our parents, and I guess for me, I had really strong family unit and strong parents, and Becky was kind of on the other side of that. So I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about her family experience growing up, and then I'll tell you a little bit about mine, and then we'll move on to the next point.
Well, for me, basically from 7 years old on, my mom raised me as a single parent, me and my brother as a single parent. So she worked all the time and was never there. So the way that she raised us kids impacted me, because I was the oldest one, and so therefore I was the leader of the house. I took care of the house. I took care of my brother. I had more responsibilities, and usually the oldest one is like that. But so it was very hard. Growing up, always I was never good enough. It wasn't done right the way that she wanted it. And I would say from even like very young, I had lots of responsibilities. Like 3rd grade, I had to make sure my brother was fed. I had to, make sure we got up in the morning to go to school, everything. And
so you were basically mothering him.
I was mothering him at 8 years old. That's scary. But that's just, and so now how that has affected me in a positive way and a negative way. It was negative because I never got to be a child. I always had to be a leader, and I am a leader now. I run a business. I raised a child, and now I'm playing with grandchildren. I've always been a leader. I'm a doer.
Yeah.
The negative part of that is I have problems trusting people to do the right thing for me, or divvy out my responsibility to other people. I feel like I need to get it done by myself. I'm responsible for everything, and I take on things.
He takes on responsibility that's not hers.
So over the last year, I would say, would you say, Sherry, about the last year, I have changed that perspective and am getting better at that. Not taking responsibility and being more at peace, because that would give me like anxiety, and I would feel rushed, and I would feel all these emotions, overwhelmed when it wasn't my burden to carry.
Yeah.
It wasn't my responsibility to carry. It was theirs. It's their job. That they did it, you know. So that was my experience. Never loving, caring, kind family unit. Always dictative.
Very critical.
And very critical.
Yeah. But she's very much the opposite of that, though.
Yes, I am very loving, caring, kind, kissy, handsy, hugs. You know, I never got that, so I feel like sometimes I'm over excessive like that, because I don't want anybody to ever think that they are not loved and cared about.
Yeah.
Because I felt that as a child, like, do you really love me? I mean, you're giving me all this stuff to do, but do you love me? You know?
Yeah.
So, and to this day, she still doesn't say I love you, even though I tell her I love you.
Yeah.
But that's just how it is.
Yeah. And I think for me, I was a daddy's girl from day one, and my dad was really present in my life as a young person. When we moved to Oklahoma for my dad to take the baseball coach's job at Oklahoma State, whenever we moved here, all of a sudden, a job where he had a lot of freedom was gone, and he had tons of responsibilities, and his job was very all-consuming. I think that had a big impact on me. But we were talking about gestures and mannerisms and things that you have that you take on of your parents. And
Yes.
like when I was younger, I swore I'd never be like my mom. I'd never be like my dad. And I'm so much like both of them. And I was saying that I never thought growing up that I was ever like my dad, because I was a very empathetic, big-hearted person. I had compassion for other people. You know, like the friends that I took on were the people that other people would reject.
Yes.
And thank God for that, because I ended up with the most incredible friends in life, you know, from that. But my very first best friend became my best friend by her having the same birthday as a very popular person, and everybody in our class went to the popular person's birthday party, and I went to my friend's birthday party, and I was the only one there. But she is still lifelong best friend to me, you know. But what we were saying is that, you know, I always considered myself to be a lot like my mom and not at all like my dad. But as I get older, I realize more and more that he and I think so much alike. And it's really cool now because, you know, he's in his 70s, I'm in my late 40s, and we're developing a relationship. And I think he is kind of baffled by the fact that he and I think exactly alike. And he never knew that, because he didn't ever really know me until recently. And so I'm very analytical. I'm constantly thinking. I'm very goal-oriented. When I do accomplish something, I celebrate for a few seconds, but then I'm on to the next goal, and that's very much my dad. And I'm also a lifelong learner and a reader, and I like to learn, and I like to figure things out, and if I don't understand something, I will work at it until I figure it out.
Right.
I don't like to be defeated by anything.
Right.
And that's my dad in a nutshell. And so that chick is rolling down the road with a towel on her head.
Or sheet or something. She's looking something.
We're in Oklahoma, folks. So anyways, did you finish saying everything you wanted to say? The second point was that you then move on to have other people under your shadow. And one thing that really stood out to me is he said, your shadow has impact on people whether you want it to or not.
Yes.
And I think as Jesus followers, like, that is super critical, because if your shadow is having impact on other people whether you want it to or not, or is your impact going to be a good one, or is it going to be a bad one?
Right.
Is somebody going to be impacted by you in a positive way or a negative way? Because you're going to impact people whether you want to or not. And so when I think about Becky and I think about the fact that our shadow is rather large, because we have 20-something kids under our shadow all the time. Mm-hmm. People that used to be at her daycare, people who are presently in her daycare, me with my kids, like, my students end up being my students for life. So these people are all under our shadow and under our impact. So what did they learn from us? Did they learn to be kind? Did they learn to compromise? Did they learn to have compassion and empathy for other people? Did they learn how to be a decent human being? Because that's, they're spending 8 hours a day with me 5 days a week. What are they learning from me?
Right.
because they're not just learning from the things that I'm shoving down their throats. They're learning about
Body
life
language.
by how I react to my admin, about how I, work with my coworkers, about how I treat them, about, am I kind to them? Do I encourage them? So there's a big impact.
Your actions.
They're watching.
They watch, yes.
And so if you're being super short and snippy and snarkety with every person who you come in contact with, well, what impact are you having on them by them watching you do that?
Right.
Or if you show kindness and empathy and encouragement and care and love to the people that you encounter and respect. And if you have integrity, if you have character, you're expressing these things, they're seeing these things, that's having an impact on them. And so we have a lot of influence. It's an important role to have, and whenever you're working with children. And so we really talked a lot about that. But there was also he had like 5 or 6 points, and I'm not remembering them all, but the last one that I remember is that the impact that you have on one can be like the purpose of your life. Rather, if like, obviously whenever you work with kids, you think, oh, I want to influence all these people. But if you get to one, if you get to the heart of one, if you get to the mind and spirit of one, it's like sometimes that's more important. Sometimes that's your purpose for being here, is to get to the one. And so you have to think about that in terms of every time you encounter a child, how are you reacting? How are you treating? How are you encouraging all the things that you're going to do with the child? How are you influencing the ones that you're dealing with? You don't know. Especially, my dad said when I was younger, when I told him I was getting into teaching, that it's not an instant gratification kind of occupation. It's a thankless, I think that teachers have gotten a lot more credit in the last few years than we have I think for a long time it was a very thankless profession.
Right.
People are just like, okay, you're my free babysitter. I don't care about anything that you have to say, but here's your you're my free babysitter. But it's not like that with everyone. Don't get me wrong, but it does feel that way a lot of the time. But later on, just like the other day, Becky opened her door and one of her former daycare kids was out here. She was getting flocked. They come and put flamingos in your yard.
Yeah.
And it's for, sports.
Raise money for the school system.
Yeah. And so, but this was one of Becky's former, daycare kids. And where did she come? She came to Becky's, and she wanted her to come watch her ball game, and came in and took a picture with her. And, it's like, and I have students return to me, and I've had students say to me, you had such a positive impact on me. It was the best year I ever had. It was the only time I ever felt cared for. And so,
but when you're teaching in that moment of that year, you don't think you're even getting anything through to those people sometimes.
Right.
I mean, really, you really don't know what you are getting through, because it's, it's a learning process, and
it's a grind.
It's a grind every single day, but it takes years, and then you see the fruit of your labor, and then that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps you going, because in the moment,
you're like, I cannot do this forever. Like, how much longer can I do this? Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is going to make me a crazy person.
God, and then that's where God placed you. That's where you're supposed to be, because no matter what happens to you, He provides. And so it's like confirmation. See what you've done, child. See what you're done for the kingdom of God. It's, or you get to pray with a family, and then their babies, the unborn babies, a miracle. It's, and you had a part in that. Also, I think he was saying too, it's, you can teach to a group, but you can only have a connection one. You keep your circle small. Like Jesus would go out and preach to everybody, but look how tight his disciples were. Him and his disciples, they did life together, and those are the people. And it's like, just like Life Church is saying, train them up, send them out into the world. And you are a part of that. You know,
that's what we do.
And that's what we do.
We train them up and we send them out.
Yes.
And you have to trust that something that you did impacted them in a positive way, and that someday whenever there's a choice to be made, maybe your voice is going to ring in their mind whenever they decide between right and wrong, or making a decision that's going to impact their life in a negative way. Maybe they're going to remember something that you said,
right.
You know what I mean? Or a time that you
comfort them when they came in, you know, cranky, or they had something happen within their family. You were the only thing consistent in their life sometimes, you know? And that impacts them. You know, that's a great impact. Because think about it. Think about, as a child, you know, you remember your favorite teacher. You remember what they did and what they said that impacted you. The people that believed in you whenever you didn't even believe in yourself.
Yeah.
I want to be that teacher for everybody. You know, I want to, not just teaching as a physical, but like my group of people that God brings to you. And that's another point that he said. There are your shadows that he just brings to you in passing. And you have to step out on the plank and take a leap of faith. The leap of faith to do what you're supposed to do.
He had a board on the side of the stage, and there was a person standing on it, and he was standing on it, but he was inching his way out, and he was talking about taking risks, basically taking risks to further the kingdom of God. And something that you can do, it is uncomfortable and outside of your comfort zone to do something like that. And
reaching out to people you don't even know.
Yeah. I mean, just like tonight, Becky and I made a decision to do some things that we haven't done in a long time to help some people that we love that we didn't realize needed help. And but those are the kind of things, like, we could just know this and not do anything about it, or we can respond to it, and it may be outside of our comfort zone. It may be a little inconvenient. It may be causes us to have to do a few things that we wouldn't have done ordinarily, but
I think God placed them in our lives for this second to learn this about them, to make a difference in their lives.
Yep.
You know, we've known these people for 10 years and had no clue. But we only knew them through the internet. We only knew them through life group. We only knew them, you know, not person to person. This is the first time in 10 years that we sat down and
had a talk with these people. Yeah, and it was just, I don't know. Becky and I talk about it all the time, that things like that happen to us all the time, and we just automatically know, and we just already know. But I wanted to her to share an example, and I wanted to share an example of one of those moments where God was nudging or prompting me or her to do something that was super outside of the comfort zone, and in me going back and forth and not wanting to do it, but knowing God was telling me to do it, and I will never know the impact that it had. And it doesn't matter. I was obedient to what he was telling me to do, and I know I was supposed to do it, and by the response of this person, I'm going to explain it to you. I know I did the right thing.
Yeah.
But Becky and I, and the crazy thing is, it happened to both of us. The two situations that we're talking about happened to both of us when we were serving at church.
Yeah.
And so at the end of church, we clean, we call it the experience room, but it's a sanctuary in essence. And we go through and make sure everything's cleaned up, and the seat backs have the things in the back that they need, and the
trash is picked up.
Trash is picked up, the stuff that needs to be put on the seats, you know, invitation cards and different things are on the seats. And so we anyways, one of us almost always has to go to the bathroom. We do. After, and like before we're serving, and all of a sudden we have to go to the bathroom, or we just come out. Anyways, so I go into the restroom, and I see a girl go into the stall, and she's sobbing. And she was probably around my age. She was sobbing. Well, I'm that person who cannot see somebody else cry without wanting to comfort them or make them feel better. But
that's
the side of me saying, this is a stranger, I just washed my hands and went to the bathroom, washed my hands, and went back out. But before I could even get back into the sanctuary, God's like, you need to go back. And I was like, no, I really want to go in here and get this finished. And no, I really don't want to do that. and so I turned around and went back towards the bathroom. And then I talked myself out of it again. And then he's like, no, you really need to go back into the bathroom. And it's so funny because people think, you hear the audible voice of God. No, it's a prompting. You feel it in your spirit.
Yeah.
And so I'm like,
you're talking in your head.
You're talking in your head. And you're feeling it in your spirit. And so I'm like, okay, I'm making a deal with myself. I'm saying if I go back in there and she's still in there, then you can talk to her, whatever. But if she's not standing out there,
it wasn't meant to be. Then
you can turn around and go back, and then at least you tried. Like, I'm trying to talk myself out of doing it, right? So I walk in and I turn the corner and she comes out and we're face to face. And I went right up to her. We both opened our arms at the same time, and I was just hugging this woman. Do not know her. Do not know. I still don't even. I knew her. I asked her name, but I don't remember it.
Right.
But she's bawling. She's bawling, the kind of bawling where you're going, because you're so upset that you can't even breathe. And then I start talking to her in her ear, and it's not even my words. And that's what I'm saying. God, like, he gives you words, and I'm just like, I just want you to know. I know exactly what I said. I'm like, I just want you to know that God sees you. He sees what you're going through, and this will pass. This whatever it is that's hurting you right now, this will pass. Mm-hmm. You will make it through this. And she's like just crying, and she's like, thank you. And I'm like, God sees, God knows. He's here with you right now. He's here with us right now, and he knows and he sees. You know, you're seen. And she just like, she backed up and she put her hands on my face, and she's like, thank you so much. I'm like, this is not me. I'm like, this is straight up from God. I hope that I offered you some comfort. Are you okay? And she said, yes, I'm okay. And I asked her I want to say Christy. I don't know where, maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. But I am not that person who walks up to a stranger and just starts hugging them and telling them what God is telling them to tell, telling me to tell them. Like, but I took that risk, and maybe, here's the thing, maybe it was a temporary hurt. Maybe she just lost her mother. Maybe she just found out her husband was cheating on her. Maybe she just found out her kid had leukemia. You don't know what it is that was breaking her heart in that moment.
Right.
What if I had just said, I'm not going to deal with it? And what if me doing that was a turning point for her to realize it was going to be okay, and she could move on and pull up her life and go. And it's going to be okay. God's here. I know it. I can make it through this no matter what. And if I hadn't done that, what if somebody's at a critical point where they're done with life?
They are at their
breaking point. They're done with life.
Rock bottom.
Yeah. What if that was the last straw, and you were the person
the one God picked for that moment?
Yeah. And what if you didn't?
Yes.
What if you hadn't?
If
and
you
that was their
obedient to God's prompting.
And so those are the things, like, that's walking out on the plank, not knowing if you're going to end up on your face or not. It doesn't matter. It's like whenever you're prompted by God to do things like that, you have to. Mm-hmm. And Becky had a similar experience. I'm going to let her tell you.
Similar experience. We were cleaning up. Like, there was this lady over there taking communion, and she was just busting out. I don't know what was wrong with her. And I just went up there and gave her a hug and just let her cry on my shoulder. I had no clue what was going on. I just wanted to tell her, you're in the right place. Everything's going to be okay. And I saw her a couple weeks, but there's so many different times that you can come, and then time change. Our church changed time, so everybody shifts around. So you might not see the same people the next week at the same time, so, but I don't know what the impact I had on her, but I know that I was supposed to be there at that time. Also, when I was getting baptized, there was a girl that was scared to death of the water, and
Paula,
yes, and scared to death. I mean, sitting there shaking like
we thought she was just upset because she was emotional over getting baptized. But
no, it was fear and it was anxiety that was paralyzing her. And so we just wrapped our arms around her.
Was it you? It was you getting baptized that day, right? Okay.
Yes. And anyways, we both ended up baptizing her.
Yeah, I said
And
when we
never
get in the
knew
pool.
her.
Yeah, I said when we get in the pool, Becky will stand on one side of you, and I'll stand on the other side
we're
of
not
you.
gonna, you know.
And then she just asked while we were in the pool. She's like, "Will you do it?" And so we were on either side of her. We baptized her that day, and she became a lifelong friend.
Yes.
Like, she's still our friend. She moved to Colorado, but she's still our friend. But you didn't mention this part. Do you not remember? Our campus pastor at the time was G.T. Moody, and she came back and asked him and described Becky to him, and GT brought her over to Becky, and she told Becky, "Thank you so much for what you did that day."
Yes, I forgot about that because it was later. It wasn't even
No,
the
it was
next
like
day.
a month and a half or something. It was a long time after that.
Yeah, and it's like,
and whenever I saw her, and I went over and hugged her too. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe that." So she got a full circle moment in that kind of thing.
A lot of things have happened, like,
but sometimes that's like 2 minutes of your life that you show a kindness to somebody
else's whole world.
I mean, this girl, I can't remember how I know this. She must have talked to you about it because she had lost custody of her child or something.
And then she was getting one back, or had started to get one back, and she was fighting for the other one or something. And you know, and she found church again, and you know, she was also raised Catholic. And so she was very, like, in the church, she was very looked down upon and cast, just, how you say it? I don't remember. I know what I'm trying to say, but I can't say the word.
Chastised?
Yeah, chastised and stuff from the church because, you know, all the situation, looked down upon, basically. And so she found Life Church, and it just changed her life and perspective, you know.
But it's just like, those are just a few little examples. It's like, you have to take the risk sometimes and go outside, especially as a follower of Christ, to show love and kindness and empathy to somebody, even if it's a total stranger. And it feels super awkward. And like you try to talk yourself out of it. But what if that is that person's last straw? What if, you know, and that's what makes me always think about that moment, because I never knew what her circumstances were. I didn't ask. It wasn't my business. This was like an encounter between her and God, really. I was just a vessel. But I love being used that way. Like, I came back into the experience room, and I'm like, you will not believe what just happened. Because your field, it's a very comforting, loving, secure, spiritually filled up feeling that you feel whenever God uses you in that way. You feel almost like you're out of body experience kind of thing. And I know this sounds all do and everything else, but
it's true.
Anybody who's ever experienced it knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
But all of, like, to take all this and put it all into a nutshell,
our shadow, we are built, we are created with a shadow. It's our parents or whoever raises us. It's
which you don't have a choice in.
You have no choice in. It's our friends that you surround yourself with.
That you do have a choice of.
And it's the people that God places in your life for a reason.
Yeah. And there's, I was just like, there's so many of those people.
And you are in
so many other people's shadows. And it's just super, and I'm actually going to, because I think this is a very impacting message, I'm actually going to put the link to this actual message in the because he can explain it a lot better than me. And you know what? It just occurred to me that I could have done that for the last two.
We will start doing.
We will start. We will start putting the exact message so that you can go watch the message that we're talking about
if you would like.
You would like to. And this one was a very impacting message, and I think it would be very beneficial for a lot of people. So I'm praying that this got filmed this time.
Yes.
If it didn't, it wasn't meant to, because we've been trying. I've been super sick this entire week, and we've been trying to schedule this, and I gave Becky the runaround 800 times trying to get it, and it's Friday.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to figure it out since Sunday, but I just haven't been doing well. And
also, starting next week is at the movies at our church, which each week for the next 4 weeks, the message is going to be based around a movie that our pastor picks. And so
he
I love
basically
this time.
watches me too. This is when we started going to live church
10 or 11 years ago. I can't
years and
remember.
years ago is when we started, was at the movie. So it's special to us because that's when we started at Life Church. But I will say with Life Church, if you want to participate in At the Movies online, you're going to have to watch each message that week because of copyright issues. They can't archive it.
Right.
And so if you're interested in watching, but basically they take current movies and they apply biblical principles to it, or find areas in it that they can apply scripture to, and it's really good, and it really influences you to want to watch the whole movie if you haven't seen it.
I was going to say, even if it's a movie that you saw, it
still gives you a different perspective. Yeah.
And it's like encourages us to go back and just rent the movie or find the movie to watch it and God just feeds you through the whole movie. It's an amazing experience.
It is, and it's for the whole month of July, and the first month is usually a repeat from the previous year, and then there's 3 new ones usually.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm anxious, and by the next year, even if it's a repeat, it refreshes you from, oh yeah, I remember that, you know. And
actually we go, our church takes the church lobby and changes it into a movie set, and this year ours is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Awesome.
And so what I will do is next week when we're there, I will take pictures and video of it so that you can see how we have a chocolate river flowing through the lobby of our church.
I know, it's awesome.
So, I mean, it's really cool. And so I'll take video of it and include it on the next church chats. But we have groceries in the back.
Yes.
I have had a crazy day and I need to go home. And so I'm going to help Becky in with her groceries, and then I'm going to go home, and I have to do a quick turnaround on this video, so it's not going to be highly edited. Whenever Becky goes blah blah blah, blah, it's going to be all there her going blah 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 blah.
Cuz I can't think sometimes, you know. That's just how it is.
But anyways, we love you. Thank you so much for watching. If we would love to have a dialogue with you down in the comment section, and I will definitely put the link to this message there, and the 2 online churches that we go to, so you can check them out if you would like to. But I would love to chit chat with you about whatever feelings you had from, or things that came to mind from listening to the stuff that we said.
Yes.
All right, we love you. We'll see you next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
You're like